about how do we get from moment of 0 meetings to initial 10 meetings, and then I'll cover the content you need to build around cold outbound. We'll go through case studies, examples, and then I'll even show you briefly how you could use our solution to launch your go-to-market. So we're going to talk only about cold outbound. We're not going to talk about marketing techniques, growth hacking, virality. We're just going to talk about pure hunting. So if you today have your email, you have your LinkedIn, and you have your phone numbers, how do you get from a point that you have 0 customers to a point that you have 10? So let's jump immediately into the go-to-market, which is the most important part. So we've seen that a lot of startups who come to us, they're trying to populate with Western geographies. So for example, they're trying to hit US market or a UK market. What we've seen is that only a specific part of solutions that are very unique, that have a very strong unique selling points, are able to actually get through this market very quickly and launch. What we recommend is that 90% of the startups actually go east to west. And what I mean by east to west is that you maybe start with Poland, and then you evaluate, people are responding to you, everything is great. Then maybe you should try Germany. And then once you get some response from Germany, maybe it's good time to go to UK. And I think you guys get the motion, right? If you go towards Western markets, there is a way high likelihood you're going to face a quite fierce competition and a lot of vendors and a lot of replicable solutions. So we recommend starting your cold outbound from the east and go start testing towards the west slowly. And then if you end up getting a lot of responses from Western geographies where competition is 2x, vendors is 2x, maybe it's a good time to also start hitting those targets. But start east to west, right? So let's go Romania, let's go Czech, let's go Poland, let's go Germany, let's go UK. And what we see is that usually this is a better way to actually get your traction instead of immediately jumping into a very highly competitive market. The second thing that we see is in mid-sized companies. The best target for most of the startups is not too big of a target, but also not enterprise-sized companies where you're going to spend a lot of time trying to close them. So we recommend focusing on that mid-sized chunk, so anywhere between 200 to maybe 1,000 employees. Now, the third thing, which is very important, we have seen so many startup founders who are trying to scale their outreach without actually getting the response. We strongly recommend you guys don't do it. So 95% of startups should sit down and literally write their first 3,000 to 5,000 messages on LinkedIn, email by hand. So you should write unique manual messages to people expressing your solution in a customized motion. To give you an example, in the last 6 months' time, I've written around 25,000 messages by hand, all manual, with no automation, no scalability, no sequences. And you might be thinking, why should I do it? Well, the reason is because if you don't have customers, you have nothing to scale. So scaling your outreach is just going to create you another problem because you don't actually get the response from automated sequences at much scale as you get from personal messages. So my honest assumption, based on all the work that we do, is that initial 3,000 to 5,000 messages should be written by hand. Now, the last thing is that if you go to mid-market, most of the time, the departments that respond the best are those that are related to some sort of innovation. Especially if you're selling SaaS solutions or if you're selling software solutions, those departments are the best to hit. So those are innovation, AI, digital transformation departments, all departments around bringing a tech forward. Every mid-market company, enterprise companies should have those departments. So you should probably start tackling those departments just based on the data we have. They respond around 25 to 30% better than any other department, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's operation. Even if you have any type of tech, usually those departments will then find out the right person inside the company and direct you to the right point. So if you're selling SaaS solutions or software solutions, try to find AI innovation guys that are working in good B2B companies. I'm talking about B2B outreach here, right? And try to send them 3,000 to 5,000 messages over 2 months period, and probably there is a high likelihood you're going to get response. Again, this is just based on the data that we have. We found this is the most viable approach of how you can do it. The problem, guys, is that most of the guys are not willing to do it. Imagine how much time you have to spend to be able to do it. But usually that's what it takes to get response from people and get your initial customers. So don't go for scalability. Go for finding people that will actually read your message and say, thanks for putting effort on research. I'm happy to talk. So that's your go-to market. Now your ICP, which is your ideal customer persona. the wider you go in terms of organization, the harder it is to find the person who is actually going to buy your software. So, in the other side, the wider the organization is, the more concrete people you can actually find who is responsible for a solution like yours. Let me give you an example so you're not lost. For example, you're selling a solution that improves sales team's capacity, or it improves sales team performance. There is a guy called Patrick in a company called Chi in Coca-Cola who is leading sales capability and route to market. And he's responsible for improving someone's sales team. Now, if you go to a small company or a mid-market company, most of the time you will not find such titles. You will only find the sales director or a head of sales. You will rarely find somebody whose title is head of route to market or head of sales capability. And that's because, guys, the larger the organization, the more likely there will be a person who is actually responsible for buying a software that is your software. And if you have those people, there is a high likelihood Patrick is the only guy who you should be talking across the whole org. So I think you get the motion, right? The wider the org, the harder to find the person. But if you find them, they'll be the right person. Now, last thing on the ICP is that you do want to make sure that you do the initial account research, which is most of the time when you try to find, let's say, initial 10 to 20 companies, you need to do a lot of research about those companies, and you need to find out if there is any likelihood that these people are struggling with something. So you need to identify, let's say, 5 to 10 signals, challenges that the companies might be facing that potentially might indicate that they need your solution. For example, you are selling a solution that is improving the process of interviewing. You are building an AI recruiter that speeds up interview process. You need to find signals that indicate that somebody is facing an issue with the hiring process. Now, how do you do it? Well, thankfully, there is a lot of language models right now that allow you to find those signals to be able to increase your likelihood of doing the research behind the people that might potentially need your solution. So let me show you an actual example so you understand what I'm talking about. So for example, right now we're working with a customer and we are trying to hit the education market. So we found universities that might be having problems around a specific challenge that this company is solving. So we went and found 20 universities, and then using Perplexity, using OpenAI or ChatGPT or language models that are available out there, like you could leverage clay.com or other solutions that allow you to do a lot of research. And we found some surface signals and some deep signals. And those signals are usually some external information that will help you identify and prioritize customers who might actually face a problem. So before you go to actual accounts, you need to find companies that might face these problems by researching those signals. So the more signals you find, the better, because you can then identify those signals that are potentially related to how you could solve their problem. So that's a very important part in building your initial manual effort. So before you write the messages, find the companies that have those challenges, and then identify some of the signals and build a pipeline using, let's say, a language model. So this is one of the core things you have to do in order to actually define your market. Now, once you find those external signals, you actually, when you go and talk to people, they will tell you if they face this problem or if this is just a bad assumption. But if they tell you they actually have that problem, those internal signals, they will get you sold. So we could identify this framework that those external signals, it will help you actually outreach to people, because you will use this info to tell them, hey guys, I found you probably facing this problem, but it does not mean you can actually sell. Once you talk to those people and they actually confirm they're facing some of those problems, we would call it internal signal. And that is something that could get you sold on the actual solution. So I think we define it pretty quickly, right? So the go-to-market, you start from east and you go to the west. You find mid-sized companies most of the time that are easier to pinpoint a lot of people you can sell into. Then you identify the signals and market problems that you could actually see that could potentially relate to, let's say, facing a problem that your solution can solve. So you find those signals and you build your pipeline. Once you found those signals and you build the pipeline, you find some insights. For example, this insight that we found right here says that, let's say we're selling a solution that helps you recognize images in supermarkets. Let's say you're selling a software and you get to a supermarket, and instead of a merchandiser collecting data manually, you can take a picture and then you could actually collect that data. So Perplexity could help you find information that there is a lot of companies currently that are using similar solutions. So for example, Danone have partnered with us in 2017, and if you're selling a solution like this and you found those insights, maybe it's not the best customer to target if they already have a solution. So I hope you get the motion in terms of a case study. If you guys have any questions about how you define those signals or how you identify them, please put them in the chat and we could go through them later. Now, once you identify signals, the next thing is to construct your value proposition. So because you found those signals, I think you probably already know the logic. If you found the signals of why somebody might potentially need your solution, you then can build a value proposition about it. For example, hey guys, I found out that this company is currently putting a lot of hiring. They're hiring 20,000 people. Well, we can help you do it, and we can actually help you hire 2x faster because this is the problem you guys are facing. So your value proposition core is based on the signals and challenges you find about your market. But then, once you actually build your value proposition, you have to distribute it across different departments, because what IT is facing problem-wise versus what marketing teams are facing problem-wise versus, let's say, HR people, they're completely different problems. So let me give you an example again of what do I mean by defining your value proposition and segregating into different motions. So, for example, this customer right here, we firstly identify type of value they could provide. For example, they are providing complex role-based assessments to test all your skills, or they have real-life projects where you could test your skills. This is called core value proposition, something that will not change depending on who you go and sell it to. But fortunately or unfortunately, once you start targeting some departments like IT, HR, innovation, marketing, all those teams in a B2B business will have a completely set of different problems and challenges, and you need to address your product value based on their challenges. So if marketing is facing a specific issue, you need to talk to them based on their KPIs. You cannot talk to them in the same voice or notion that you talk to innovation teams, or for example to IT or HR teams. So it's very important, guys, to separate your value prop into different departments and then determine how your product could influence one of those departments. And it does not mean you have to sell into every department. Maybe your solution is just for IT people in the bank, or maybe your solution is just for marketing people in the insurance companies. You don't have to streamline it, but we recommend doing it because most likely you will need to hit multiple departments in a company to be able to get some initial response. This is on your value prop and importance of separating it. Again, if you guys have any questions, why should I separate my value prop, why each department should be addressed differently, or why I should have different value proposition, please let me know in this chat, and I will definitely let you know some of those answers. Now, finally, probably as you already understood, your messages that you're gonna write manually to people to get response are going to be essentially a result of your research. So if you found your ICPs, you found your market signals and challenges that the companies are facing, and then you found your value propositions that you could address based on those signals. Your outreach message would actually be just a result of what you found out. So this is, again, guys, example of a message that we've built for a customer. This is very important. For example, we say, hi, Kelvin, I've noticed your extensive experience across those companies in China and now leading company called N. And we know that you currently essentially leading these development departments, and you recently moved to Bulgaria. This is something called personalization per each person. Then there is a second part that comes in, which is called account research, where we find something about specific companies. So you say, I've noticed that your company currently provides personalized senior care services, including daily monitoring and medication management, indicating potential need that maybe you need some health data tracking. I know it's very out of context, but what I'm suggesting is that we personalize it per that person. We then find specific insights about this company. And then, because we found this research, we now say, hey, I think our company could support you by developing this specific software because of this problem, and maybe we should talk about it. And then, as you can see, it's sales, you still have to follow up. So the point, guys, is that you do this research, you do this manual work, and then you collide and combine this research into extensive information that you share to stakeholders. I don't suggest this is the only option, but based on current reality, with the amount of problems that people are facing getting response from guys, this is the framework that we leveraged across all the customers we had, and this is the only way we're currently generating demand. Everything else is much harder than putting the manual hours. So your initial point is to put those hours in to get that response. And if you can get response, then ultimately you should have initial demos, customers, or meetings. Again, I'm talking about pure cold outbound hunting. Now, last thing before we go into some of your questions, very important. I see a lot of founders keep writing same messages, which is not good. Once you gain some data, your content has to be updated. So over time, your content should become more and more warmer, and you should leverage the insights you're having from conversations with customers to enrich your outreach. So it should always be an iterative process. You cannot just rate some messages and constantly just use them. This is not a good idea. So please update your content and make sure that you enrich it with those informations that you get from the customers. And I think maybe just to wrap up, finally, right? This sounds tough. It sounds a lot of manual work. I'm not saying this is the only option, but my reality is that this is the only thing that we do. And this is the only way to track a predictable amount of customers. So we focus on four elements, which is we have to personalize each message based on each person. We then have to find account insights and signals based on specific companies. We then have to tailor our value proposition based on those signals and then call to action them towards rather getting a meeting, getting a feedback from them. And by the way, if you still don't have a product, don't worry. You don't have to invite somebody on a demo and show the product. You could say, hey, can I get your feedback? I'm building something, so I'm keen to understand. I know some of you guys might be at MVP stage yet and don't have a product yet. So my suggestion is that you still talk to people, just get their feedback on what you're doing. And finally, I know this is a little bit more complex. You still have a choice to go for enterprise or if you go for mid-size, right? We're talking just B2B business. But the complexities with enterprises and mid-sizes, the amount of times that I've seen people spend so much resources on trying to sell into enterprise, I've seen a bunch of startups die by the time they sell into actual enterprise. So usually, as I've mentioned, try to stick with mid-size and that should be a good option and a strategy. Now, what I want to do is shortly show you how you could use our product to do this initial effort. It will not help you cover complete scenario, but it will help you at least to go towards the first stage. So let me just share a different screen and give you a quick walkthrough, and then we will go through some of the potentially questions that you might be having. So do you see my screen? You do, right? Cool. So you go to birdiva.com, and also I'm going to share my calendar because you could actually use and build this with me together. So I don't mind doing it, guys, together. I do have some time next week, which is probably Thursday and Friday, where we could build it together. So let me just make sure I put the right thing here, and that we are sharing it with the right link. So if you don't manage to build it on your own, you could actually build it together with me. But if you want to build it with me, I strongly recommend doing it. I have time next Thursday and next Friday. Whole next Thursday and Friday is separated. If you guys want to build it together, just go to my calendar link. I've shared it in the chat. And you can just take time from me on next Thursday and Friday. So it's just going to be for next Thursday and Friday. If you guys want to do it, let's do it together. If you don't want to do it, then it's fine. So what do? Is you go to birdiva.com, you add your credentials. So let's say I say vugar@birdiva.com, and then I put some password, and then I say, whatever. Let's say I put this, and then I put my password, and then let me put an easier password so I don't forget it, because I'm getting old, guys. And then once you sign up, you go and you create your account. And then you choose and you tell us which industries you want to hit. Let's say I want to go computer software or internet, or I want to go semiconductor or law. I choose my industries first. Then I select departments. Remember departments I talked about? Let's say I want to sell to sales and marketing teams in internet and in computer hardware software. Then I choose a preferred size. Like I said, probably try to stick with mid-market, maybe go enterprise if you're really, confident in your solution being super valuable. So you could choose some employee sizing, let's say from 50 to 5,000. Then you choose a targeted location. You know, like I said, maybe you go Eastern Europe, maybe you go Western Europe, maybe you have something for African guys, who knows? You choose a geography you want to target. And then please tell us and specify a problem you're trying to solve. So for example, my company solves a problem which is startups don't have a good product market fit and they are struggling to get customers. And then my solution is I have a product market fit platform that will help me generate customers based on AI research and findings. Please be a little bit more descriptive, guys, with the solution. Don't say things very shortly because machine needs to read a lot of information. So try to put as much information as possible so machine can actually evaluate what you're doing. And remember those market signals, guys, that we covered on our session. Please try to add some signals that you think might indicate that somebody needs your solution. For example, if you have an AI recruiter, you could say hiring freeze or reverse, a lot of hiring in the company. So try to put some signals you think could indicate that your solution might be there. And then try to choose you guys probably have a pitch deck, right, already, or a presentation. Most of you should have a presentation. Feel free to add this into your pitch deck and then choose a file which will be your presentation. And then you could press submit. And what machine is going to do is I'm going to share another screen so we don't wait for machine to generate and you actually see what's the result. Machine will generate everything we talked about today. So it will generate your industries that you could target based on your value proposition. It will then generate your ideal customer profile, those departments you could target, the challenges that those customers might be facing, and potentially your value proposition based on those challenges. And then it will find you some account and signals, which is essentially where you can go based on the signals that potentially might be there for those companies. So it will search for those signals and accounts. It will then generate your value proposition separated based on each department so you could leverage in order to actually go and message, which is the final part. It will try to build your initial messaging. As I mentioned, it will not be 100% go to market. You could just take it and move forward, but it will give you initial fundamentals. If you know what you're selling, you know the problem you're solving and the solutions that you have, you just upload this information to Birdiva. And please take time from me for Thursday or Friday next week if you want, and we can go through it together and I'll give you feedback, or we can discuss together and then maybe build your initial product market fit, and then you could go and try to attack some of your customers and then maybe get the initial customers. I think from my side, this is all. I hope this was enjoyable and maybe I managed to give you some insights, guys. And of course, happy to answer questions or anything you guys want to discuss.
Yes, thank you, Vukan. I don't know if you are hearing me good. So I think we can have this part with Q&A session. So who wants to put one question for Vukan or maybe two? Feel free to do
If you
this.
guys have any questions, please, let's go for it.
Yes. Yes, we have one from Lindsay. Please, it is a startup from startup school. Yeah.
So I have a very important question.
Sure.
When we try to sell and message different people, how much of AI we could use to do the research, the voice int of the people, and to customize their message?
Good point. So I think a great point is that you should use AI and machine learning in order to be able to actually do the initial research. So you should gather that research, and then I think based on the research that you found, you should probably write the messages manually. So AI is really good use case for doing the search, but it's really bad use case for writing messages because the messages that is writing is not good quality. So let's say if you generate some of the messages using our product, it will be just a stepping stone, which means you could generate the initial draft, but the next part is to start adapting those messages so it actually sounds human and unique towards specific people. So here, answering your question, I think the biggest use case is research. So leverage it as much as you can to gather as much data. And then write the initial fundamental messages by using AI. But once you've done that draft, you probably should go towards maybe using your own creativity and your own hands to actually draft the messages. Does that answer your question?
All right, thank you, Vuga.
Sure.
We have more questions.
Perfect. Yes, let's go through questions. I
Maybe
love it,
you are
guys.
interested in something, how to be a founder, what challenges you have as a founder. Maybe you can answer to this one.
For me, my challenge is I want is the only one, like for anybody else, is to start scaling. The scalability is the biggest problem because initially what you end up doing is doing a lot of manual work on your own, and then at some point you have so much manual work you have to do that you have to start delegating this. And this is the biggest problem that most of the startups, including myself, face is that you end up having time you have to spend in order to find out the people who could actually do the work for you. And you cannot find the people who can do it because they rather don't care as much as you do, or maybe you have to build a system so they can actually implement those tasks accordingly. So I think the biggest challenge is delegating and scaling. But aside from that, I think the second problem is usually with really finding the right customer, because most of the time you might think this is your customer, but you end up figuring out that actually they use your product for a month or two and then they're no longer interested. So this initial acquisition of getting people in versus having them stay there for 12 months is two completely different things. You can get as many people as possible in your product, but if they don't stick there for, let's say, 2 to 3 months, then this is a problem. So right now, the biggest challenge for us is retention, making sure people stay and they don't leave.
I have a question, may I?
Yes, of
Yes, of
course.
course.
Okay, hello, my name is Elena, and
Hey, Elena.
I'm totally blind. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to solve some more possibilities for more
Mm-hmm.
independence for people with visual impaired.
Uh-huh.
And I would like to know, you said if we want, maybe after we do this research on your platform, how we can work together, like you said, we can connect, how it's possible to connect.
Yes, Ileana. So I think the best job would be if you have your email, you can send. You can tell me your email. I can type it in, or maybe Janina has your email, and we could maybe I could send an invite to some time we could agree. Maybe let's say on next Thursday at some time that works for you, and we could schedule a time, and then we could join a meeting, and I could help you out with what you're currently looking for.
Yes, for me sounds perfect. Janina, it will be possible for you to give my
Yeah,
email?
yeah,
Okay,
sure. I will make an
okay.
intro for you too. Also, don't forget to book one-to-one with Kar. He sent a calendar link. So also I will make this intro between you.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ileana. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Anything
Yeah,
you would? Yes.
waiting for another questions. We have one in chat.
Perfect. Let's go through it. Why did you choose to be a founder? It's actually a good point. Well, the reason I've chosen to be a founder because the company that I worked with in the past actually failed. So I used to work for a company that was very early stage, and we actually raised around $3 million. And when we raised $3 million, we thought we have a good product market fit. But we start selling our solution, got a lot of investment from other people, and actually we failed and didn't manage to build a company. I used to be head of sales at that company, and then I realized, wow, you can take a lot of money from investors, but actually don't hit the point of being a product. So I thought maybe there is other people out there who have the same problem. God forbid they go and take someone's money and then don't deliver on it. I'm joking. Of course, you can get investments and don't have to be fully confident in your solution. But the reason I started doing something on my own is because I was forced to do it. We failed, and then I thought, okay, what's my next thing for me? And then I saw this problem which is maybe there is so many other startups that are at a very early stage and they rather have problem with acquisition, retention, or let's say lead generation. And I thought maybe I could solve it for a couple people, and then I start solving it for 4, 3, 5, 10, 20 people, and then it came to a point where it was enough people to actually make a business out of it. So I think it was mostly by coincidence. I didn't really, plan to do it. I was kind of dragged into it by market's demand, which is usually a good indication, guys. I think if you end up building something or start to work on something slowly and you end up seeing so much demand, it pulls you in. Usually that means maybe somebody needs it. And for us, lead generation and client acquisition is like selling tomatoes or going to a dentist to fix your tooth. I mean, everybody needs clients. So for us, it was second nature to help people get customers. I hope that answers your question.
I have one more. Yes.
Sure.
So you work with other 25 startups in just 2 years. Through your experience, what's the most common mistake that you see to early stage founders make when defining their go-to-market strategy?
Sorry, Janina, what was some of the challenges you mentioned?
Could you please repeat?
Yeah. What was the question you were asking, Janina? Sorry.
What's the most common mistake that you see to early founders when they are trying to define their go-to-market strategy?
Automation and outsourcing. This is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
They think they could just automate, build email campaign, and have 10,000 people added into email campaign, send information about their company to somebody, and all of a sudden they will wake up and people will want their product. I think it's very rare that you build something and send it out massively and people will start responding. Usually it's an indication of a huge product market fit, but most of the founders start with very early indication and they have to pivot, change, and reconstruct. And because of that, usually that massive communication to customers is not the best way to launch your go-to-market. So as I mentioned earlier, we highly recommend to start some manual groundwork initially. So I think automation I've seen being the biggest problem because they start automating, they don't manage to do it, and then they start coming back and saying, hey guys, we're not getting any response, but we already burned out 10,000 emails to people that don't care. So I think that's something you guys need to be thinking about most of the time. Cool. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Anything else I could help with today?
So I have another question. Vuga, from your perspective, what's the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for starting a startup here in the West, in the East, in Moldova, Romania?
Oh, good point. Well, I think the biggest opportunity is that it's still underrepresented, right? So there will be some money flowing into those geographies in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, the way that the money will flow in is mostly dependent on whether there are some actual success stories coming in. Most of the time, if it's a venture industry, funding, or anything in regards to getting some exposure from those geographies, you should have some attention on those geographies. And the challenge and the opportunity is that there is a lack of attention. So from one side, it's hard to attract Western funding or let's say venture funding from Western geographies. But from another side, if you guys get 1 to 2 success stories coming out of Moldova, for example, in Uzbekistan now there is a unicorn, and then there are several unicorns now on the build in Kazakhstan. And those countries are complexities because there's not many startups coming out of there. But because those 2 unicorns came through, immediately there is a lot of foreign capitals that start coming in. So I think the challenge is that you are definitely underrepresented and there is low visibility. But the opportunity is also that you could actually, if you manage to be successful, immediately there will be more attention to that geography and maybe a lot of available capital flowing in. I think that's the thing. And then lastly, it's obviously, which is very logical, and I think probably common to all of you guys, is attraction of talent, right? If you guys are looking to hire people, it's harder to find people in those geographies because they're less competitive in nature. So these geographies don't have as high of a skilled competitive talent, and it's hard to scale with talent that is mediocre, especially if you're an early stage startup. So naturally you have to spend a lot of time finding the right people to build the team. So I think that's also a big problem.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question? Yes.
Yes. If you guys have any more questions, of course.
Yes, I would like to ask you, do you use just email or some other channels as well?
Oh, great question. I love this. So we used to use a lot of email, but in the last 1 year or around 6 months, we had struggles with open rates and deliverability because the infrastructure, companies and providers of emails like Gmail or Outlook, they had built a lot of let's say spam filters and deliverability filters to be able to stop a massive communication coming out. So we have seen a lot of problems related to technical infrastructure. So in short words, it's harder to set up a successful email domain which will constantly deliver 20 to 50 messages per day that will be landing into actual inbox of customers. So in the last 6 months, we really leverage cold call and LinkedIn more because those channels, we could call them distribution channels, are more reliable because there is no problems with this technical infrastructure. So typically we recommend, going for all those channels, but maybe right now LinkedIn might be the best in terms of deliverability and being able to be noticed, or at least that's what we see on working with customers.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. I think, Janina, we also wanted to go through some pitches, right? Is that correct? Do we still want to go through some pitches, or we should just go through Q&A and then
I just
that's
want
pretty...
to ask our founders from our accelerator program if
Perfect.
they want to pitch here and to bring your feedback from your side. If we have here our founders, so if one of you want to pitch in the front of that, please feel free to do that
Yes.
if you are prepared.
If you guys want to go through and give it a shot, and go through a pitch, let's do it. And then maybe you could, I could give you some feedback on the pitch. But if not, it's fine also. It's a pressure, 32 people here watching. Some of them asking questions.
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a hard pressure to talk. That's fine. If you guys are hesitant, also you could book time and we could go through a pitch. As mentioned in the chat, I've shared my calendar link. So if you want to do it, on your own, then definitely you could schedule a meeting with me. There is a calendar link in the chat. How to automate the outreach? Example: I do fundraising, seed, 100K, 20% equity stakes. Okay. We could answer some more questions, but is there anybody who guys want to go through a pitch, or should we just finalize with questions and let everybody go? Okay, no worries. Then that's fine. As mentioned, if you guys want to do it, online, one-on-one, you can go for it. Simon, answering your question in terms of how to automate outreach, if you do fundraising, I think it's a very hard task because, as you know, there is a lot of people that are hitting the pre-seed, seed, and A guys because there is naturally an unavailability of capital right now, and there is way more people trying to hit the door and way less money that is being distributed post-pandemic. So I think first thing is to define your target, right? If you have venture funds or family offices or LPs or angels that you're trying to hit, you probably have to differentiate and segment them into specific cohorts. So if you have managed to find people who specifically invest into your type of wait a second, maybe I'm not getting your question right. 100 angels and the right investor thesis, all about LP, how to customize. So are you trying to automate? So you're trying to find LPs and angels who you could offer a venture fund, or are you trying to sell your startup into these funds? So I'm not sure if you're trying to find the venture funds, angels, or are you trying to, do you have a venture funds that you're trying to find LPs for? So if it's the latter, if you're trying to find, oh, so yeah, so for example, if you're trying to look for angel investors, you have to segment them into those that are more likely to invest into your software. So if you usually those are guys who have exited or have been working in specific industry that you are trying to automate. So for example, if you have a banking software and you have a SaaS for banking industry, your best bet is to find angel investors that have came out of banking industry and they essentially exited, or they have pile of money and they are actively investing into your type of software. So your first point is segmentation. You have to segment angel investors that are more likely to invest into your type of software. And in your case, whatever software you're selling, you should validate profiles of people that came from a natural industry that you are trying to target. So again, as I said, if you're selling insurance tech, you need to find a lot of rich guys who've done insurance in the past. There is a likelihood that they are, they are trying to invest into similar technologies. And then once you segment the angel investors within that industry, then the best thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to try to create at least somewhat semi-personalized messages and then launch them through any solution. There is so many solutions that you could use to do it. There is Apollo, Lemlist, there is a solution called Mixmax. All of those sequence tools, if you're trying to automate and hit those guys, your best bet is to at least segment them into, your type of angel investors. Regards, give all contact info, LinkedIn, email, phone number. Sorry for being this direct. Yeah, so I need to give you my house address maybe as well. You can visit me. I'm joking, guys. I think the best bet is to go to my calendar link. If you want to chat, I think the best thing is to go through that. But
I'll send it
yeah.
after our session, all the information, your LinkedIn,
Yeah,
if you are
exactly.
agree with
You guys
this.
could go through it. Yeah.
Okay, good. If we don't have any more questions, I think it can be a wrap up of our
Yes.
founder call. So, Vugar, thank you for being here with us for an hour. I am sure that our founders, most of them will contact you if they will need help from your side. So this is from my side. Thank you for being with us, for insight, for experience, and so on.
Great. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, guys, to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you, everyone. And, hope
Thank
good
you.
luck
Thank you.
with building your startup and
Thank you.
have a good day.
Sure. Thanks. Have a good
Thank you, guys.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.